The reputation economy is here. The world today needs more genuine, credible experts and leaders to stand up and share their experience, their wisdom, their stories and ideas. Are you in?
Alrighty, welcome back to the Reputation Revolution. This is the podcast, the professional personal branding podcast, where this is the podcast if you want to know anything about the reputation economy and positioning yourself for all the benefits and advantages and opportunities that come with being a leading player in the reputation economy, with having a profile. This is the first episode back for season number 6. So it's episode 221. We thought we'd kick off with a bang. And I've got not one, but two guests, two very super suave and super smart gentlemen in the studio today. I'll let them tell a little bit of their story and who they are and what they do, but I'll introduce them. We've got Sam Osborn, who's one of the top branding experts in Australia. And we have Brendan Keogh. Brendan's a little bit of a chameleon. He's a marketing guy, he's a branding guy, he's an audio engineer, and he's a ghostwriter. So I'll let him tell that little bit of a story too. Welcome, gentlemen.
Great to be here, Trev.
Sam, you have been in the branding game for how long? You've worked with some of the biggest branding companies, as in consultancies, and major companies as well, major brands as clients. Walk us through a little bit of that history and then where you are today. What are you doing today?
Sure. Look, I started life on the client side and then went to the consulting side through brand management 25 years ago. So I'm actually not as old as I look, but I've been around brands, brand strategy, brand design, and my current business called Branded, BRNDED, is around purpose-driven brands. And I've been around the traps for a little while, so I've taken all that knowledge from big agencies and now work with experts like you guys to do the consulting thing with brands that are driven by purpose.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. And Brendan?
Yeah, hello, Trevor, Sam. So I guess my career could be summed up as frustrated rock star. I was in bands and loved that. There was always going to be a global hit. Did marketing as a thing on the side, but grew to love that and spent 10 years doing marketing, a lot of financial services firms. Stumbled into ghostwriting. I ended up ghostwriting a book for a friend, and that just sparked a love. I realised from then that I just loved creating, just as much as the strategy of selling. So since then, I've focused a lot of my energies on content creation. I've been freelancing for 3 years now. I was social distancing before it was a thing, out of my home, working from home. And just love content, and that's led to the frustrated rockstar thing, circling back, led to them producing a lot of audiobooks and podcasts for clients. So it's something I really do enjoy and love as a great way for people to get more use out of their great content or show more personality.
And you do tend to work with thought leaders and professional experts as well. So because we're going to talk today about personal branding and brands in general, but with a skew towards personal branding. But just tell us how many books have you ghost written, and how many audiobooks have you now produced?
I've ghost written 5 books and over 20 audiobooks.
Wow.
So, and it's got, it was a bit trying it out at the start, and but really got the process down pat. And we have one of the key things working with the authors that I do. Yes, they're generally thought leaders because they've written a book, they want to voice it. We're not getting voice actors in here to do it. It's the author themselves. It's an opportunity to really for potential clients or keynote speaker guests to get a real sense of what they're like. Just so much more than you can from the page. So that's that's a great part of it, and just helping them have fun and enjoy the process. So it's a good little it's a great chance.
Gentlemen, one question I get asked a lot, given that I work with a lot of people who are building their brand, their professional brand, But one question that comes up is, should I promote my and I'll take it back a step. Mostly people who are maybe running their own business or a senior in a bigger business, senior executive or senior leader. Which one? Which brands first? Personal brand or business brand? I'm going to create content. I'm going to be on social. I'm going to be doing all of these things. I'm okay with that. But where do I place my emphasis? Personal brand or the business brand? And so I want to unpack that. We're going to get it more into just branding generally, but given your background, Sam, I'd love to hear your take on brands. When someone asks you what is a brand, then hey, it's a logo,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Oh, please, please. Thanks, Trev, and looking forward to Brendan's response too. Uh, but essentially, I always talk about a brand being who you are and what you stand for. Brands are like people; they have values, they have personality, and more, I guess, important is your why. And whether you're a business or a personal brand, it's why you're here that's important, and people will buy obviously your point of difference. But if your why is connected to what they're thinking, then it doesn't matter whether you start with business or personal branding. It's the same process, and I guess it really depends on where you're at in your career, whether you're wanting to establish a personal brand or you're building a business brand and then spinning out. I guess that's there are different ways of approaching it. So it doesn't start with one or the other, but the process is branding nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you to answer that question. So thanks for your take on brands. Brendan, what's yours?
Yeah, in terms of what comes first, it is a bit chicken or egg. I think it depends on your situation. A lot of the thought leaders I work with are solopreneurs or the business is built around them. So by necessity, their personal brand is at the fore. But generally, having a business brand just again increases their credibility. The business becomes broader than them, so they are still the front person to have to be front and center in a lot of the activities. They're bringing clients through the door, so their personal brand is critical. But that business brand just gives it greater weight. Also enables them to not have to be involved in everything. They can position the team. So that part of things. Do we want to talk about the the broader definition of brand?
Well, I'm always interested in people's definitions because often people see it in different ways, even though they're all in marketing. They often see that in with different lenses on. What's your take on brand?
Oh, look, I'll reference Brett Rutledge, who's a client who I was fortunate enough to work on his ebook, the language of identity, and so Brett's a business linguist, he's a pretty interesting cat. So first thing he does is go back to the etymology of a word. He talks about understanding a word, truly understanding the meaning before we just using words willy nilly as we just generally do. And if you could go way back to the origins of brand, back to the ancient Egyptians. And apologies, Brett, for paraphrasing here. So write in if I've got something wrong. But just to paraphrase in general, the ancient Egyptians, it was brand meant the marking with wood-fired tools on a cow to signify ownership. The 1800s, that's where we started using the actual brand, and the brand referred to the tool to make the mark on property, whether that was livestock or pottery or whatever. And then that brand became to signify the craftsmanship, location or the person who made it, or the area that was known for that type of pottery. So then we started to ascribe different traits or value or quality to this symbol. I guess the important thing and interesting thing I think Brett touches on is brand versus identity. Brand being a subset of identity. Touching on what you said, Sam, exactly that. It's about being yourself and being authentic. Identity is the totality of who you are, the warts and all, everything, and brand is the parts that we choose to show the world. but it's got to be
I think
authentic
that's
and
a
aligned
great
to who you are.
history, and I use that also. But I start off with the Texans and them branding their own cows. But you're right; it goes back in history. But not only is it an identifier in the first place and a sign of quality or value, now it is a central organising principle. So when you get your brand right, it's not about outward in; it's about inward out. And I think that plays true with
Mhm.
personal branding also.
Exactly right. That's the key part when you think of it it's a subset of identity. So therefore, identity is the key, and it's pretty easy to think about personal branding when you start
Yeah.
talking in terms of identity. Who am I? What do I stand for? And so therefore, that's when you can really get that greater sense. It makes perfect sense. We're not going to, Trevor, to use your term, open the kimono and just show everyone exactly what goes on or what our personal life is like. Um, we put forward the professional side or elements, and there's certain things we want to hold private or that aren't appropriate or relevant. It's about, brand is the parts that we choose to put forward. Brand can change, and identity is something that doesn't change, it evolves. And so, if and a lot of the brand problems or confusion that people have is because they haven't got their identity.
Well, that's right. I mean, the way I look at it, I almost go back a step and say, well, however people experience you, whether it's, and we're talking more the personal branding, but of course it works with business brands both ways. But how do they experience you from listening to this, to me or you on the podcast, to seeing what we put up on Instagram or how we tweet, or whether we're being quoted in something, or whether we've come to do a talk to their university or whatever it is, any of those touch points. And today we have hundreds of touch points. That's people's collective experience of having to come in contact with you. That is your brand. So you have one whether you like it or not. So, which always, to me, begs the question, why wouldn't you want to influence that? So for me, the art of branding then is to try and influence in a genuine, in an authentic way, how people perceive you across all of those touch points. So if you're going to be, and I remember the early days I've been around long enough to remember the early days of blogging, and there were people who were quite snarky bloggers. They were full on in your face, but when you met them, they were like meek and mild, like a mouse. And the disconnect was actually quite jarring. And to me, that's when you lose trust, is when you're different across all the channels and people experience you in real life as opposed to what they've seen on TV. What's that saying? Never meet your heroes. You'll always be disappointed. Because that comes down to they're not consistent across TV than they are in real life.
Boys, if I can just add to that, and it is around identity, and we can talk about this further in a moment, but brands are like people, values and personality. When you define those as a brand, as a business or a personal brand, you've got to be genuine. So you're taking that identity, you're defining those values and personality traits that are genuine and believable. And that enables you to build that trust, but it's got to be real. And you can't make this stuff up. Otherwise, you're schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm.
You've got values that say one thing and a personality that behaves in a different way, and all of a sudden, you've lost people. So, values, personality, and as I opened up with, this understanding of why you're here and what your purpose and point of difference is, they're the three ingredients, at the high level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think they're all really powerful, and this is an opportunity to showcase. What are you trying to achieve? So it's an opportunity to showcase what you like to work with, or what you like on stage if you're trying to get on stage, or whatever it is your business objective is. And if there is that disconnect, if people do meet you in real life or start to work with you, and there is that jarring, then that's when trust is totally eroded. So it's important to be true to who you are, know who that is first, and making sure you're conveying that to the community. Having an understanding of your key messages, so that you're always going to be staying
Absolutely
on the right track when you are communicating.
Sam, what would you say to people? I mean, the branding is part of the marketing lexicon. Like any word in the marketing lexicon, it's been bastardized to within an inch of its life. even words like thought leadership. The marketing industry has taken it on board and smashed it. You can understand people being there's two classes. One is the people who hate the idea of personal branding, don't believe in it, that side of things. But what do you say to people who are non-believers about having a strong, visible, and authentic personal brand?
Well, I'm a late comer to the scene, and I'm going to be speaking with you, Brendan, about ghostwriting my book. Especially if you've got a farm, I can stay out overnight or the weekend. But I'm that old that I started talking about Richard Branson and Steve Jobs, and I'm that old that that they were. Even these days, I guess Apple is talked about, and I guess what's interesting about those guys is that they imparted their values and personality into those brands, those business brands. And now we're finding that personal branding is really a starting point for a lot of entrepreneurs, and so it should be. But I still, because I'm still in the business of creating brands that with meaning for commercial organisations, I'm not quite there, but I know how important it is, depending on your business category, your brand, your personality. But it's very important that there's alignment between the individual and the organisation, because as I used to say 15, 20 years ago, when those guys fall off the perch, Steve Jobs has, Richard Branson is still with us. Those brands live on well beyond the mortal life. And I think if you want to leave a legacy, then it's kind of handy to have that business as a legacy, that business brand as a legacy.
But what do you say then for going back to that original theme of the episode about personal brand versus business brand? There's a lot of I only just today, it arrived today. I ordered it about months and months ago, and it was surprising. I forgot that I'd ordered it, but it's a book by Elaine Pofeld, and it's called Tiny Business, Big Money, and it's about people who are running very quickly. I haven't read it yet. He just got it today, but she does a lot of research in one person or very micro businesses who are making $1 million, right? So who are very profitable. A lot of those types of businesses today are the person's brand. They might not they might have a podcast. They probably have got a podcast or a blog. They might have a media sub brand, or they might have some products. For myself, I'm creating a new business called the Credible Authority Academy. I'm still going to be part of it. I'm still going to be all over it. So in that regard, it's a business. It's a serious business. It's potentially a seven, not mine necessarily, but this is, the businesses people are running, they're potentially 7 or 8 figure businesses, but the person is heavily involved with it. Does that, once you go down that path and you become bigger than the business, that becomes an issue to wind that back, doesn't it?
Wind what back?
Well, if you're so well known and then you build the business, a totally different name, and then you don't want anything to do with it. If you're too connected with that, is that a problem?
Brendan, do you want to answer that first? You're much closer to the personal branding
Yeah,
side.
well, look, I think there's risks if and again, it just depends on how you start. If you start off as your personal brand and build up this enterprise, and then you are hamstrung by that name if you want to sell it and exit, unless it's the attributes are so imbued. I mean, it might be like an Adidas or something, which was founded by a person, but it lives on, and so it's not, depends on if it's the actual name or it's the actual persons and that. Like there's nuances to ways that you can make it outlive the actual person who founded it. But where it's interesting is if you've got an existing business and people are looking to build their personal brand, their profile, which is a super smart and kind of base level business move these days in terms of giving you the opportunity to just reach more people, build deeper relationships, people follow people. We know that. So in terms of a social media following, there's no doubt people follow people within your company
I
rather
think
than
that's
your
a
company page.
sorry, Brendan.
That's just a
I think
no-brainer.
that's a really interesting segue into what I guess answers your questions, Trev, and that is I'm doing some work in B2B at the moment. And when you look at LinkedIn lead gen and the importance of a personal human brand, that then opens up opportunities to do business with a business to business. It all starts with an individual, their personality, not necessarily their brand, but they are trying to build reputation, and it has to be, dare I say it, planned. It makes sense in business and in personal life. And when you reach out to other businesses to be personal and human, and I think that's really interesting because that creates opportunity not only to build business value, but to build personal brand value.
Yeah, absolutely. And can be a challenge, I think, for some businesses when this personal brand is evolving a bit, could rival
Right.
the actual brand, or how much should you be promoting your personal brand versus go out there promoting our business brand? And so that I think can cause some conflict. But I think ultimately the business benefits from
Yeah.
that person, as long as they're not off doing a
Yeah.
side hustle as such. The overall business
Benefits.
benefits, and so I don't think there should be any cap on allowing people to build their personal brand. And you're seeing it more in a lot of the professional services and accountants and things where traditionally conservative and staid, but now, and lawyers, they're out there a lot more comfortable being proactive
Yeah.
and selling themselves, building up a personal brand because it's relationship building, and what you're doing is setting it up so that when someone does come in the door, they already feel like they
Yeah.
know you, and that you're so far down the road of trust. So it's just such a smart business move, and the progressive employers will understand that, and that this is necessity, and this is how people from now on will be conducting themselves in a
I think
business
there's a
environment.
couple of ways to look at it, and I think everyone's going to be different. I mean, if you are wanting to build something to sell, then you need a business brand. Like, it's pure.
Yes.
And you need to be able to walk away over a period of time, bring a team in to run it, and you can walk away and you can sell it. Now we see that happens. But a lot of people have also, they've been around the business, they've been around in the trenches. Probably, where this show's pitched to are people who are credible. I'll use the word credible a fair bit, and incredible, of course. But they've got the runs on the board, and they've been around for 20 or 30 years, and they now rethinking, well, I don't want to be in corporate. I'm going to run my own. You can basically run your own consulting, advisory firm, coaching, mentoring, education, teaching, all sorts of things that we can do today. And it's a lot easier to do today than it used to be many years back. You could always do consulting, but, you probably wouldn't do it from home or, in Bali, from Bali or wherever. Now you can do it anywhere. So the dynamic of what is a business today has really changed. So there are people that I want to run the business around me, that they don't really need a company. I've got a company name called Influence and Impact, but the only people see that it's on their receipts and invoices. I'm not out pushing that name because I don't need another name to push. I'll have the Credible Authority Academy, which is my training organisation. That will be my brand, my sub-brand. So Brian Clark, who a lot of listeners will remember, who's one of the founders of, he was the founder of Copyblogger, which was one of the preeminent blogs in the early days, still is a very, very good blog around content marketing. He built a massive audience. I've read him talk about in the past that he's not a big one on personal branding. His name naturally gets out there because he's the founder, and he gets interviewed a lot because he's a founder of a successful business. But then he brought on partners. They created a thing called Studio Press, which were WordPress themes. And then another platform called Rainmaker. He built an audience, worked out what the audience wants, and then delivered them under brands. Now I think he sold Copyblogger and bought it back. He sold Rainmaker So he's built eight-figure businesses, sold them, and continues to go out and create. He's got new businesses now. So his name is just synonymous with it, but he doesn't necessarily go out and push that at that expense. He pushes the businesses. So that's a classic example of someone who's pro. He's got a personal brand. He's got a reputation par excellence, right? So he's got that, but he's got different businesses that are running, and they're almost like media brands. So I don't mind that one as well. I think that, but he knows that he wants to build them to sell.
I was just about to say that's a bit like restaurateurs, and the behind this new restaurant that everyone's going to and buying is such and such family, and then they've built another one and another one, and they're different stories, but they own those restaurants as businesses, but they've got their reputation that they're developing at the same time.
Well, we've used reputation. What's your take on the difference between reputation and brand? I know there's a lot of blurring of the lines, but we are on the Reputation Revolution podcast.
And reputation are the same beast, I guess. I would think that reputation is an outcome from managing your brand well, and executing it well.
Yeah. Have you got a take on it, Brendan?
And I'd come back to identity, so again, looking at brand as that subset of identity, the parts we want to show the world, and our reputation is definitely bound up in how we are, how we operate, how true we are to our values, our purpose, etc., that Sam touched on earlier. So yeah, there's definite. It's very heavily bound up in the brand.
And so if we take that one further, so if we look at, go back to that theme of business brand versus personal brand. So if you were going to build a business, now I've got a client who's a lawyer, and he's got a small business of 5-6 people. A lot of people run, agencies and businesses and firms and consulting firms of that size. But they're still the front of it. They're the ones on radio or doing the podcast or writing blogs. Now, some of their team might write blogs and do speaking, as is the case with my client. But he's still the face of it. And that, to me, makes a lot of sense. I guess the only thing then is people this is where the danger comes in, is they always want him to do all the work, and he's just one part of the business. There is a team. So there's a bit of operational stuff there that, yes, I'm the front and you'll get to meet me, but I won't do all the work.
It's the perfect way. And then you've got two opportunities to reach people through the business brand and through your personal channels. So depending on where your audience are, how they can learn about you or interact with you, you can reach them both ways. And exactly, that person is the rainmaker, bringing in the clients, position the service offering, and this is what we're going to do. And now I'll hand you over to my colleague. So you position the people in your team. So I think that's a really smart way to go. Just in terms, I think a lot of people, it's great to think about selling a business, but probably a lot the business, like a lot of the thought leaders that I deal with, the business is so tied up in that person, even though it's a branded name. It's hard to sell. So it's not so much for that, but I just like that value of being able to be a little bit arm's length, and still have the opportunity to push both brands.
I'd like to pick up on your point, Brendan, and I did some work with Zaparis, which is a family law firm, personal injury. There are 5 members of the family. They were all original partners, so it's a name that they were the partners. The problem became, now they're a national business with about 45 partners, and they were saying, we love being part of this family thing you've got going, but I'm a serious partner here. I'm ex-Slater and Gordon. I do this, I do that. So while I love the family feel, the people are buying into the Zaparis positioning brand, not just the principals and the owners of the business. So that kind of works against, it doesn't work against anything. They've got a strong brand name personally, but also they've increasingly got a brand that's broadening and growing its revenue through this idea of deeper understanding of the law, and deeper understanding of personal situations, because that then extends the life of that business way beyond the Zaparis family.
So I think the other thing to do when, and I've worked with a number of firms, whether they're law, accounting, management consulting, ad agencies, etc. And a lot of them are basically multiple businesses, aren't they? They've got multiple practices under the one brand, or multiple teams. What do you say to and a progressive firm will say, no, I want my experts out there. My practice leads should be out there building their thought leadership positioning in the marketplace, building their visibility and bringing their team along who are experts as well, because they got that their practice is basically the business.
Absolutely.
And we see that happen quite a lot now, where someone is in a big practice, but they run the personal injury practice or whatever the commercial litigation practice or whatever it is. But you also get companies, and I'll say companies generally, but it's usually where the people are experts, that, I don't want to promote any of my senior executives and lawyers or accountants or whatever. They build their personal brand, then they leave.
Yeah, right. And they take their clients with them.
Apparently.
But it's such a small-minded approach, isn't it? One other aspect of it is, even if it is a brand, it can have, be driven by strong personal brands that are driving it, that are owners, founders, what have you. They're not going to resonate. That personality of that founder is not going to resonate with every type of client. They could be a bit over the top, or whatever it might be. So that's where it's imperative that your principals are out there showcasing themselves, because that just gives you a broader range of personalities and styles to appeal to a wider audience. Unless you're super narrow cast and are only going for angry, tradies or something like that. You want to be able to be a bit broad, and that's just different styles will suit different people. I might not really connect with the principal, the rock star. They might be fantastic talent, but it might be a bit over the top for me. But this person, I feel like I can connect a bit better because I'm pretty conservative. So, I'll actually work with this guy.
I think that's a really good point. And the other thing is that when firms are expanding, I think that's important, because days have gone where individuals or businesses want to talk to the one and only principal. Because of those, there's different people, different strokes for different folks, and you don't have to have CEO in the name to necessarily get a meeting with a CEO. That's changed in the 20 years I've been in business, and it's worked for me as an elder. But in the old days, when I was much younger, you had to have the principal with you to actually get in the door. Or so as you develop your own, expertise, your own reputation, you can work within a firm and a brand, because you're a different personality, or you've got a different expertise, as Trev was talking about.
Mm. And as an extreme example too of touching on what Trevor was mentioning earlier, of if you fly Virgin, you don't expect Branson to be flying the plane or taking tickets, checking in. So yeah, it's you understand that I'm here because of the values, the personality of this overall brand that's been imbued by some figurehead. But yeah, I'm going to be dealing with other people, so it doesn't have to be that person show all the time, and it is a bit of a balance for some of the rock star types to step back a bit, bring their people in, because it's about freeing them up to do what they do best, which is being in front of audiences, connecting, engaging, and in getting people to notice the brand and come check it out.
I think someone who's managed to do it well, and he's in the industry, but if you look at someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, and his name became extremely big, as we know. He originally was with his dad's business, Wine Library, and then he created Wine Library TV, which was a blog, and that's what kicked him off. But he was the one on the front. It was maybe the Wine Library video show or YouTube show, but he was the one presenting, and that works okay because he's there to sell the business and sell its products and stuff like that. But as he got bigger and bigger, they don't get much bigger in a lot of that space, in that sort of hustle culture, entrepreneurship. He's pretty damn big in that regard. So when he sets, the fact of the matter is, and this is a really key lesson here, by the time he set up his own agency, his name was off the charts. It was huge. And so he set up the agency, which is called Vayner Media. So at least a lot of his names of his businesses are tailing off his name. He founded it with his brother, also of the same surname. But that business started on fire. Like it may as well have been 10 years down the track. It was started with clients. It started with revenue. It started with momentum. It started with recruitment, with talent, because the talent all wanted to work with him. Now, everyone knew that he wasn't going to be on the accounts. Sure, he may have been there to pitch and be in there and press the flesh, but no one expects Gary Vaynerchuk to be on their account personally on the tools. So that's a great example of someone who's built the name. It came out of a small business. He's built it into the stratosphere to the point where, Gary V, everyone knows Gary V. And then he does the businesses off the back of that. So from that respect, his name is gold. It's the one that drives everything. Now, one day he'll sell Vayner Media, no doubt, and he'll be able to extricate himself easily from that. He's built his personal brand into the stratosphere, and any company that he associates with or starts, and he's got numerous of them, benefits from his halo effect. So from me, I think the personal brand first, and it gives the halo effect for a business or multiple businesses.
Trevor, just to touch back on Gary Vee, I mean, he's a legend. He's so magnetic in his delivery and ideas, and the way he goes about it. And interesting how he started with a business brand, then built his personal. Technically, you could say he's built a business brand after that, but it's still his name, and he's still so intrinsically linked to it. But the key for him, he was one of the, I won't say one of the first, but he was very early in just hammering a senior person, a key person delivering content all the way through, content, and trying new platforms, doing new things. I mean, I find almost some clients, I'd almost say, hide behind a business brand because they don't want to, there's no judgment, just that this is what it is, that they feel like there's too much work in terms of doing, and social media is probably the main way people think of building their personal brand. Too much work is a lot of effort to do that, and interacting with people one-on-one, like it's very, very difficult to do for busy people who are running big businesses. But he can do it. So he's an inspiration in that way, and just changes the rules, I guess, for a lot of people, and shows that it's doable. It's an absolute wonderful example of what you can achieve with your personal brand.
I'm just kind of conscious of time and wanting to round up here, folks. So I think the answer really is you really need to know what you want to be doing. So I think number one is the personal brand, yes, across the board. If you're running a business, if you're a CEO and a leader, you need to be out there anyway. You've got your personal brand, whether you like it or not. People are interested. How many people who big CEOs get a really big following once they decide to go out on LinkedIn, for example? But not everyone's a big CEO. Most people are probably running their own show. They are the brand. They might have a business off it, and they're wondering which to promote. I mean, personally, I'm probably more pro the personal brand first, then the business brand comes underneath. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably more today a collection of projects. And I read a good article the other day about Seth Godin. He wrote it in 2014, but still relevant. It was all his projects that he'd ever done, and he looks at businesses as projects. So he writes a book, it's a project. He runs a business, it's a project. So his career, he's got a portfolio career, and I think where things are headed now is people are going to have portfolio careers. Or they call them the slashers, don't they? They're a consultant / coach / speaker / educator / something, professor. But I think if you're heading towards a portfolio career, people, if they want you to advise them, to be an advisor to your startup, they want you on your board. They want you to be part of their non-profit. They want you to be an ambassador for their software product, whatever. That's externally. They want to work with you. Then heck, it's you, the personal brand, that's going to do that, not the business that you're with. And so you are the business. If you're going to have a portfolio career and you're all of those things, you are the business, whether you like it or not. So you really, you need to understand that dynamic. But you might have a podcast which becomes its own brand. I mean, I'm known as the PR Warrior. I didn't set that up. That was the name of my blog in 2007. It's still the name of my blog. Every time I go to get rid of the name, someone says they love it. Why are you getting rid of it? So, if you Google PR Warrior, I'm going to come up all over the place. So that's a brand which I've never really used as a business, but it's just kind of like a tagline. But I think today we can create media brands, and we can fall within that. And so that media, what we're seeing is the media brand itself might be a podcast, for example, that then turns into the business. So I think we've just got to be really flexible with how we do it. But it does all come back down to your personal brand. If you're running a company and your brand's not out there, well, do people want to work for you? In the war for talent, do people want to work for you? Clients go to certain companies because of who's running that company.
Perhaps the way to manage it, as brand theory would suggest, is you have a brand architecture. So understanding what those portfolios are under the master brand, and that master brand might be your business brand, or it could be your personal brand. But what's the way to navigate those different portfolios or different brands in your portfolio that makes it easy to navigate and not confusing by having too many brands out there, in which case you need to euthanize them from time to time.
Well, at the risk of starting up another conversation towards the end, can you just dive a little bit deeper on brand architecture? Because a few people have probably fallen off their chairs and thinking, "What the hell is that?" Something else I need to. Is this marketing jargon or not? What's the go there? Explain it pretty quickly.
Welcome to my client's world. So brand architecture is very simply the relationship between a master brand and the other brands in the portfolio. Marketing would suggest that the easiest way to build understanding and credibility and reputation is to invest in one single master brand, and then maybe have different services or categories or verticals underneath that master brand. Monolithic approach. Here's theory 101. But then there's the portfolio, the house of brands, where really the master brand is just a legal entity or a investment entity, and it's the brands underneath that are so powerful, and that according to consumer goods, FMCG, they invest in those power brands because they're different. They're meaningful. They do different things. There's no overlap, but it's about managing that portfolio, that brand architecture, and being systematic about it, so that you're being efficient in the way you go to market.
I can give you a sort of an online marketing version of that. I was listening to a podcast, a guy called Jay Klaus, and he was interviewing Nathan Barry, who was the founder of ConvertKit, which is one of the world's biggest email marketing tools. And Nathan was talking about skyscraper versus strip mall. And that's the same thing, kind of what you're talking about. So the skyscraper is you put your efforts into one sort of brand, and that's what people buy, that one thing. Whereas, and it might have some sub brands off it, but it's the master thing. The strip mall is as a collection of products and services and companies and everything else underneath it that they're a collection. They're just like a mall. And so you keep adding to them, and usually you get that when you aren't exceptionally planned. And I know that Jay had talked about this, and he'd really started to think about it. He started knocking off a lot of his products as a result, because he'd just been adding to these. Too much overlap, too many things, gets out of control. We just keep adding as we go, and then has now started to bring everything under the, I think he calls it the creative companion. So I like the skyscraper. It's the same deal, the master brand sort of thing, but the skyscraper versus the strip mall, I think it's a really great way to look at it. But still, personal brand is right within that. So Any final
Absolutely.
comments there, Brendan?
Yes, Trevor, just on what you were talking about with thought leaders and that personal brand, I encourage people to build that, focus on your personal brand first. You definitely need a business brand is helpful supporting you to give you credence, position a team. So it's not all about you, all of those things, but you are the rock star. Go out there and let the business brand support you, not the other way around.
Sam?
Yeah, and well, I would say we need to be we need to be agnostic about whether it's personal branding or business branding, and do a needs analysis to understand what is the right thing to do based on the objectives of the client.
Yeah, or as in the company or the person or the business.
Well, the person who's either in the business or wants to develop a personal brand. But I think the other thing to say is that there is so much potential for personal branding, but I don't think the business brand is dead yet either.
No, I don't think the business brand's dead at all. I think the personal brand we live in a reputation economy. People are doing business with people. People want to do more business with people. The content is created by people. The interviews and the podcasts are done by people. People follow people. So I'll stick with that. And then the halo effect that comes from that, which that halo effect is, you could say that's your brand. That can help you start partnerships, sell products, build another business, build a software company. All of these things you can do off the back of the personal brand. And then if one of them takes off and it really goes, I've seen people swap over and do more with the business brand and try and pull themselves back. But conversely, I've seen others who have had a business brand, they become bigger than the brand because they're out speaking and everything. That becomes their meal ticket. And so, of course, that, someone doesn't go, to a conference. They go to see the keynote speaker. Now, Sam will probably say the keynote speaker could be the founder of a really great business brand, and that's what gives them the cachet. So there's a couple of ways to look at it. So there's no really definitive. It's just where you sit and what you're going to achieve. And if you're wanting to build a business, start it up, flog it off, then you need to be part of it, but it needs not to be you. That's for sure.
There aren't any rules, but perhaps one principle is ask what your why is, and that will determine whether you should go in one direction or another. I'm not sure.
Yep. We didn't even get into values. That's a whole segment all on its own. Terrific. Gents, I think people should look you guys up on LinkedIn.
Sure.
Brendan Keogh and Sam Osborn without the E on the end. Sam, give us the spelling of your business, please.
Branded.com.au, BRNDED. There are too many syllables in this world.
Sounds terrific. All right, mate. And thank you, Brendan, for being in this today.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Trev. See you, Brendan.
Really enjoyed
Ciao.
it, guys. Thank you very much.
The reputation economy is here. The world today needs more genuine, credible experts and leaders to stand up and share their experience, their wisdom, their stories and ideas. Are you in?